Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Break the Change podcast. My name is Eastside, and I'm talking today with my brother Manny. And today we're talking about a conversation that you saw, like a video, right?
Monaleo, she dropped this song "Sexy Soulaan," and like that song been hot on social media recently, bro. Like TikTok, Twitter, everybody been talking about it. I think it's dope. Like I think it was really pro black. Like she had a lot of African flags in the background in the video. She had a lot of like African American cultural things in the video and stuff. Like
You said
you know what I'm saying?
Solange was the artist?
Nah, the song name is Sexy Soulaan, but her
Oh,
name is Monaleo.
Monaleo.
Yeah,
Okay.
so she like a Houston artist. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but the song was dope. Very pro black song. She had the grills in the video. She had like black people communing together, like family barbecue vibes. Like it was cool. Like I like it.
What was the lyrics about?
The lyrics was pretty much like almost like a pro black anthem.
Okay.
Like, and at some point it was like she referenced like some like just like things in the culture that you would just know off the rip
Okay.
that you've heard in the culture. You feel
Yeah,
me?
yeah, yeah.
Like I feel like whether
Like,
you
like painting blackness in a positive
yeah,
light.
like painting blackness in a positive light. Like I just respect the song off of that. Like I feel like especially in the times we in, I feel like there hasn't been a lot, especially in
Yeah.
hip hop and rap. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of like pro blackness being interjected into that. I'm not saying like
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I feel like I always appreciate pro blackness and just in the mainstream type shit.
Yeah.
So like that was cool to see, but that brought up the Solan like identity on Twitter and on TikTok and just social media in general. A lot of people were talking about being Solan, being like African American.
Solange means what?
Solan is pretty much to my understanding is like referring to African Americans, black Americans
Oh, okay.
in the States.
Okay.
Pretty much. Like it has its own like flag pretty much. It's like a sword. It's
Oh,
like black
yeah.
and red.
The gold sword.
Yeah, I believe the flag was created like in the 60s. It was
Okay.
like the Black American Heritage flag.
Okay.
And
Is that what the foundational Black Americans are?
no,
That's different.
That's a different identity, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's different from foundational Black Americans.
Okay.
I think they have some similarities in the sense that they're saying they're pretty much referring to black people in the States.
Okay.
And the people that like they granny and they great granny like is from Mississippi and the
Okay.
southern states
Yeah,
and
yeah.
those, you know what I'm saying?
I got you.
Those places and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With the whole Solon thing, I think two things about it. Like I feel like there's a lot of positive to it because the flag itself is not like a pro-America flag. The flag doesn't even look like the American flag.
Yeah.
It's not the American flag.
Yeah.
And I think that was dope because like it's black people saying like we have our own flag. It's the Black Heritage flag and like
Yeah.
that's cool, I think. Just saying like appreciating black culture and black customs.
Yeah.
I think where they lost me was like in the song she said like Black American Princess. And I feel like that's where I kind of like was like, okay, like I fuck with the pro blackness, but the associating with the American thing is kind of like
Yeah.
where it kind of tripped me out. And I feel like I think that in itself is a big discussion. Like I feel like I definitely fuck with the side of like having your own flag, the Black American Heritage flag. And that's not the only flag that black people in the States have had in this country. Like there's the RBG flag, the red, black, and green,
yeah.
created by Marcus Garvey in 1920. Like
Pan-African.
Pan-Africanism
Yeah.
flag, like that was a flag like because there was a popular song back in the day, like every nationality has a flag, but the insert anti-black slur. And Garvey was like, yo, like word bet, we about to make our own flag and it's about to be fly type shit. So he made his own flag, and that flag pretty represents like if you're a person of African descent, the red, black, and green is your flag because it's like the Black Liberation flag.
What would you feel when you hear the Black American Princess comment? Like what about the term Black American kind of turns you off?
I think there's nuance to that term, and I don't wanna. I think just because a person says that they're a Black American doesn't necessarily mean that they're saying like they support everything
Of course.
negative that America is doing.
Yeah, and
I feel like you could just be a black person describing where you are geographically. Like, yo, my folks is from Mississippi, my folks is from South Carolina. Like, and I don't want to make it seem like just because a person saying Black American, they like for like slavery and imperialism and like war and genocide. I'm not saying that. You feel me?
Of course.
But I think my problem with it is like, I think it's the thing of like saying pro-blackness, but at the same time identifying with like your oppressor. Like I feel like that's really my thing with it because it's like I said, black people have had different flags and different identities in this country. Like,
yeah.
and I feel like, and I don't think, and I'm not saying that I know what where Monaleo was coming from.
Yeah.
When she, you know what I'm saying, when she did the
yeah.
song, and I know what she thinks, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like there's a lot of nuance to that has to be addressed. Because I think I was on TikTok when I heard a lot of people talking about the Soulaan thing. They were saying like Soulaan is about the descendants of chattel slaves and the descendants of slaves and everything like that. And I feel like even that alone is a problem, because I feel like it's one thing to acknowledge enslavement. As Black people all around the world, we've gone through enslavement. Like, all of us were enslaved, whether you be in Jamaica or in America. But I feel like the problem starts where, like, when you begin your identity there, when you say we are the descendants of that, and like when looking at the Soulaan website now, it's like it's almost like a deliberate not claiming of African heritage, but deliberate claiming of American heritage. And I feel like as Black people, that is kind of a problem, because it's like all of that culture that Monaleo was talking about in the video and in the song, all of that we got from Africa. Like all of the grills, the gold, the way we dance, like a lot of a lot of cultural things that African Americans have passed down, like that's strictly from Africa. Like I feel like, and that's not, there's no shame in saying that. Like I feel like I
mean, you have a lot of people nowadays that feel like we are not from Africa. Like like a lot of Black people here in the country are not from Africa. Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess like I think the reason a lot of that is coming to fruition now is because there's a lot of pseudoscience. History is very perverted and has been polluted. The truthfulness that's supposed to be merged with history is not as there as it should be. We grew up with flags that portrayed Africa as a quarter of the size as it really is, which already shows a deep intention to blur what is really going on the world stage, what has been going on. And we've seen even in health science in America, all different types of sciences and historical facts have been played with for the sake of big corporation or for the sake of white supremacy or for the sake of both. So that has opened up to a world of confusion for a lot of Black people here in this country. And it's not to say that Black people haven't been migrating across the globe for years and years and years, undocumented, and have been in America before slave ships have been in America. But this anti-Africanism takes many forms. And at times, I'm not going to say all times, because there are people who truly believe in different sciences that say that there are people who migrated here before slave ships came here. But at times, it does play the form of I am everything except African. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I'm not saying Monaleo was doing that in the song, because in the song I think something that was really dope. She had African flags in the background.
Okay.
She had the Black Lives Matter flag. She had the Black Heritage flag. She had the African flags in the background.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying what her intentions were. It seems like she's a very pro-Black, like very conscious of. I feel like even putting an African flag, she's kind of saying like that's where I'm from. Like as a Black woman, like that's where my heritage is from, and I respect that. You feel me? But I feel like to your point, like I feel like we're in a time where I'm seeing a lot of Black people like deliberately saying they're everything but African or of African heritage. Foundational Black American, I think is a like backwards type of thing, because I feel like, and I say backwards not to denigrate or disrespect the actual customs that African Americans and Black people in the South and Black people in the States have. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying those customs that we're talking about, that Monaleo's talking about in the song, like that, all of those customs come from a place. Like,
of course.
And if you don't want to say the name of that place and you're saying I'm American, but you know what I'm saying, but you're
of course.
kind of not saying like you're of African descent.
Of course.
I feel like that's something that's a hurdle as Black folks that we're gonna have to address, because everybody comes from somewhere, and we know as Black people, if we being real, our heritage is in Africa. So I feel like
just we know that not only historically through historical record, but also just scientifically, we know that the whole world comes from Africa. You know, and we know Africa has become a bad word. You know, for people of every race, Africa has become a bad word.
That's a fact. Yeah.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I feel like Definitely like the video. The song was, I think the song was like like an actual pro black anthem. I would definitely call it that. And she included Caribbean and African flags
Oh,
in the
that's cool.
background.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I think that was really dope. I think but I think that Soulaan identity, I think there needs to be like that more like addressment with that.
Broadening.
Like more broadening with
Yeah.
that. Because I feel like we're in an era where a lot of black folks are saying like you just said, like they're everything but of African descent.
Yeah.
And you got folks being proud and happy to say they're American, and it's like white Americans enslaved us.
Of course.
Like,
yeah.
you know, white people enslaved us. So
Yeah,
I feel like this over excitement to like identify with America, but not even say like, oh, all that swag, all that cultural things that we have as black people, it really does come from Africa. Like, and that's not even like an exaggeration. That's just like, if you look at it, that's a fact. Like,
I think a lot of times that argument of like we know exactly where we're from and it's not Africa, it's exposed by the holes in the overarching story, in the sense of you know where you're from as in geography, but in terms of where we're from as America, well, was it called America? Well, if it's here in this land that you're from, and he was here before enslavers, then what language did you speak? What God did you worship? What kind of associations? What kind of associations did you have to, each other? What kind of social classes did you have? What kind of economic system did you have? And when you start asking these questions, we know that for the mass majority, you do not get a response back as to the answer of all these questions.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The mass majority of people, whether they claim this or they don't have a understanding of their culture prior to enslavement. And so that puts already holes in the story, and now those holes are being manipulated to say, well, we're everything but African. And what led the way for that to even be a statement is the fact that traditionalism has not been passed down through the encroachment of enslavement. So, you know what I'm saying? So ultimately what unifies us strengthens us. And what takes us apart takes away our power. It's just true. You see it of being black in America. We're not sufficiently unified. I think that's a hard part to argue. Being black in America, we're not sufficiently unified. It's arguable that even being African in Africa, you're not sufficiently unified. And those same borders that you abide by, saying this is Ghana, this is Nigeria, were borders created by colonizers. You know what I'm saying? Being black in UK, we're not sufficiently unified. Being black all across the world, it's beyond arguable that we are not sufficiently unified. So these terminologies that we create to say I'm never this, I'm never that, I'm never that. And now you see this encroaching sentiment, which we both have talked about before, where you see people saying, well, I can't go here. When you see the world collapse and it's like, well, I can't go here. They hate black people here. Well, I can't go here. And it's like, you're on the Death Star. You're on the destroyer colony. It's hypocritical to have anything to say about who hates black people in the center of the destroyer colony that has done everything to black people. It's completely hypocritical.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I feel like that anti-Africanness, like I feel like it's been taught to us as black people. Like, yes. and I feel like that needs to be addressed. Like, I think part of the Soulaan thing, I think the part of like recognizing the unique contributions and customs of black folks in the States, I think I definitely respect that and acknowledge that.
Of course.
But I feel like there has to be a conversation of like, as black people in the diaspora period, like wherever we are, like we've been taught to hate our heritage. Our actual heritage.
For sure.
We've been taught to hate our features. We've been taught to hate a lot of things about ourselves. And I feel like that's the reason why there's this insistence on, like, to your point about borders, like, that's why there's this insistence on, I'm not an African, I'm a Jamaican.
Yeah.
I'm not an African, I'm a Haitian.
Of course.
I'm not an African, I'm from the South.
Of course.
I'm not an African, I'm Panamanian.
Of course.
But it's like, where were you before those places?
Of course.
Like, and just being real, if you look, phenotypically, if you look at black people and you look at Africans, we look the same.
Of course, yeah.
So a lot of it is delusional, and there's a lot of delusion in these spaces.
Yeah.
But the folks that call themselves black indigenous people, were indigenous to North America, it's like we know the folks that were indigenous to North America.
Yeah.
We know how they look. Like you said, we know what languages they speak. And if you don't know, that history is already like documented.
Yeah.
So like that's something that can be studied. Like we know before North America, our people was in mostly West Africa and other places in Africa.
Yeah.
So I feel like these are things that we've been taught a lot of delusion as a people.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of like we can't say the truth for what it is. Like,
of course.
You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's a lot of these conversations, these diaspora wars that are going on, I feel like it's a lot of that. It's like we know we come from the same places of black, like you just said, like black people in UK are not unified, black people in Africa are not unified. Like that's a really great point. Like I feel like we need to focus on what unifies us and not what divides us. We need to focus on our on our commonalities and not our divisions. Like I feel like there's always this discussion on like who has the coolest black culture and who. It's like we all come from the same place as black. Black people, like whether you a black Jamaican or you a black Haitian or you a black Bayesian person, like or black in the South or black wherever, like
the routes that you migrated through is not a sufficient should not be a sufficient information to divide you because you migrated through different routes because you were enslaved but on a different island.
Brother, it's not even migration. That was forced kidnapping.
Exactly.
So, like, because they put you on a different island, you're going to use where they put you as a point of division?
Exactly. Or even the people who feel like they've migrated prior.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Who they've migrated prior to enslavement on their own.
That's
kind of like, we as Africans, we migrated to Americas or whatever, or you know what I'm saying? But to believe that, you know, a certain land birthed you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As in this land that we're on today that they call America. Yeah. And to have such a stringent belief that this land is the land that birthed you since your conception as a human, since your ancestral conception as a human being. First of all, you do not have the scientific resource to define that this land has birthed you since your conception ancestrally as a human being. Yeah. You don't have that scientific resource to define that. So your insistence on defining that you came from the seeds of what is now called America and nowhere else with no type of scientific defining research and information to me leads me to believe you may be coming from an anti-African pretense. And you know what I'm saying, like because you haven't had the magnifying glass and the microscope to be like, oh look, I've seen the first instance of blackness here on this soil. You know what I'm saying? So most of the research that we're aware of, you know, whether correct or incorrect, because all of these things are up in the air for a lot of people, but most are trained and lined back into Africa.
Absolutely.
Not only for black people, for all of humanity.
Absolutely. And the thing with Soulaan is I've seen people associate and identify with Soulaan. They've said that they're the descendants of slaves, and I feel like I think with that it's like we have to realize what's being said here. It's like it's one thing to acknowledge slavery. I think as black people, it's important to acknowledge what has happened to us, of course. Our Holocaust, our Ma'afa, like our trauma. You feel me? I don't think that's a negative thing, but I feel like with the Soulaan thing, I've seen people stop at that. Like we're the descendants of slaves, but it's like where were you enslaved at? Yeah. Where did they take you from to be enslaved?
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? And I feel like that avoidance of saying where we were taken from, I think it's a problem because like that is our heritage.
Of course.
Whether you want that to be your heritage or not, that is something to acknowledge.
Of course.
And I think with the Soulaan thing, just being real, a lot of the Soulaan African American culture, Black American culture, like a lot of those cultural things that we saw in Monaleo's video, it's like those are cultural things that came from Africa. We didn't get them from the white people. We didn't get them from the indigenous. We got them from the Africans because we are an African people. Like that's where our heritage lies. Like the things that we do, Black Americans and Black Caribbeans and Black UK people and Black Africans, like you see a lot of similar things culturally. Look at Brazil, like you see a lot of culturally similar things because like we are the same people. So I feel like that line needs to be drawn. Not the same people in the terms of like we have to do all the same things, but there's cultural things that you can look at in Africa that you can see like the similarities.
Of course.
Like,
And we also know that although that's very important, the line of being African or not African is not necessarily a defining line to revolutionary ideology. Ultimately, as a black person, you have to be, in the world that we live in the colonized world that we live in, you have to be revolutionary about being a black person, right? Being of African descent, and the crux of that revolutionary mind isn't necessarily identifying as African. Just as you got a lot of people in this country identifying as black, and they might be the biggest traitor to black people in this country. So the crux is the important crux of identification is being revolutionarily against this colonial empire, because you have Africans in Africa who are bought out by the colonial empire, and the what they stand on the most is being African. But ultimately they're traitors to their African counterparts in Africa. So ultimately, although understanding your heritage is very important, understanding your allies are very important, understanding your enemies are very important. It doesn't, and it's important for all of us to know, this doesn't end at classifying yourself as African. This doesn't end at classifying yourself as black. Candace Owens classifies herself as black, and there's a lot
well,
of,
barely, but yeah,
yeah, but if someone asked her, she'd say black.
yeah.
And there are a lot of similar people with similar talking points in Africa classifying themselves as African, because the colonial empire, even though it's affected America so deeply, it's also affected all of the world.
I think there's a lot of nuance to that conversation. I feel like I say the importance of identifying with your heritage because as like I think black people have Stockholm syndrome. And I feel like we this insistence on like identifying with the people that have oppressed us and are still oppressing us, I think that needs to be addressed because like identity is an important thing. I think identity, and I'm not saying because you identify as African or you identify as a black person, that means you're going to be for your people and doing great things for your people. I'm not saying that, but I feel like culture itself is a revolutionary thing. Culture itself is a thing that like moves people and stuff. You feel me? And I feel like especially in this time, they're telling black people a lot of things about what our heritage is and what our identity is. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's important for black people to realize that in this country, we've been taught to hate our heritage and to hate our identity. And we've been taught not to identify with our experiences as black people. We're being taught to identify with America. We're being taught
Yeah.
to identify with the people who have oppressed us. So I feel like that's an important nuance to talk about because when you look at our leaders historically, like Marcus Garvey was not saying I'm an American. Malcolm X was not saying I'm an American and I'm fighting for black American rights. You know what I'm saying? They were not saying those things. So I think I'm saying identity in the sense of if a people don't know who they are, how are they gonna know where they're going? So I'm saying it in that sense. I'm not saying it in the sense of just because somebody says it, they're for their people. I'm
Of course
definitely
not.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely not that person. Like
Of
oh,
course not.
because you say you black or because you say you
Yeah,
pro
of course
black,
not. Yeah.
I'm not that person at all. But I'm saying like in the sense of we're so scared to say we're black and we're like not even black. We're so scared to say that we're of African descent because then white folks have taught us like yo that's like a bad word to say. And that's a bad thing to identify and associate with because like all the propaganda we learned as kids as like you was we all went to elementary school. You feel me? Like African booty scratcher and all that negative stuff. Like I
Of
feel
course.
like
Yeah.
we
Spirit trucker.
yeah,
Yeah.
spirit checker. We know how deep all that propaganda goes, and
Yeah.
I and
It
I
runs
feel
very deep.
I feel like as black people, it's our job to like unravel our trauma and see ourselves and see our heritage for what it is. I don't think that means to use that identity to like because you're right. People are gonna use that identity to exploit people. They're gonna
Yeah.
use the
It's
black.
being used.
It's documented. Like we already know people gonna be like, oh, I'm pro black, I'm pro this, but they really not pro anything.
Yeah,
So
we
like
saw Trump with the African presidents who went there just to kowtow to Trump, and out of and it's not out of necessarily anti-Africanism. Some people, their fear turns them into cowards. You know what I'm saying? And it's understandable when you're dealing with a country that has nuclear weapons. but ultimately we have to be about the things we do that change things for our betterment, not the things we do that keep us under the heel of white supremacy.
Absolutely, and I feel like ultimately it's not in black folks' interest. The black folks that are interested in like revolutionary change and positive change for black people, I feel like it's ultimately not in our interest to identify with America as a country, just
Oh, for
given
sure, yeah.
just given everything America has done to us. Like I feel like I understand the history of the Soulaan thing. I understand some of the history of the Soulaan thing and where it's coming from, and black people in America like understanding the unique contributions of their culture and things like that. And I respect that, but I think it's important to say like America is the country that enslaved us. It was the United States that enslaved us. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the reason why like black people are like essentially like an underclass in this country still. So I feel like it's important to realize like identifying with the country that's kind of oppressing us still. Like is that in the best interest? You know what I'm saying, of black people?
Yeah,
Like
and identification goes deeper than calling yourself American. Identification is about how do you feel about your hair? How do you feel about your skin color? How do you feel about um your people being the underclass and it being justified for your people to be the underclass? Um, what I'm saying? Like identification is about your ideological belief based identification with what has built up to be called America. You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? We not only know this as an exploitive industry that exploits us the most, but we also know this as a tyrannical industry that is funding things like the killing of the Palestinians, things going on in Congo, the destruction of Haiti. Like this has been a exploitive system since its inception. So as you're saying, Manny, we have to be very careful aligning ourselves with this kind of rhetoric.
and and I just want to point out that like as black people in this country in the states, like we've had movements. Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa movement. Marcus Garvey's movement of like saying like we are an African people. Whether you in Jamaica, whether you in Haiti, wherever you are as a black person, you are an African person. So we've had movements in this country. The moment we set foot in this country, we were still identifying as what we were. We were African people. So I feel like as black people we have to recognize like we've had those movements. We've had like even the movement to call ourselves black. There was a reason behind those movements. It's because we've been like I said again, like we've been taught by our oppressor what to call ourselves. We've been taught what to identify with. And like you to your point, like I feel like it's kind of a contradiction to say all this pro black stuff and to be pro black generally, but then to say, but I'm an American.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm for American
yeah.
culture. I'm an American person.
Of
And I
course,
support what America is doing. I feel like essentially that is a contradiction when you look at it. Like,
of course. And even after this conversation, if you're a black person listening and you move forward believing in, let's say, a different science, a different idea about who you are, a different association to Africa, um, it's the important crux to follow through with is who is really your enemy historically, who really is your historically, who have they attacked historically, and can you make friends with the people that look like you, that look like you, that you come from. You know what I'm saying? Can you make friends with the people all over the world that are being equally attacked by this group? Or will you identify with the group that is the attacker for the little crumbs that they offer, as treats, what I'm saying, for being their guard dogs, which the white man in America and the white man across the world has always done this system of treat giving and punishment giving to the folks that they want to enable as their guard dogs. So will you be a guard dog for America and American interests and white supremacist interests here in America or across the globe? Or will you be someone that says, let me ally with the people who are being attacked and form sovereignty, you know what I'm saying, and create some type of world of equality for everybody?
I think a lot of it too is like playground politics. Like I feel like it's like who's the winning side. And we know America
For sure.
when it comes to force and it comes to like stature in the world,
For sure.
politics, like
For sure.
America is the country that's on the top.
Of course.
So I feel like a lot of black people, just being honest, like they feel pressure to like not pressure, but a lot of black people identify with that because it is a world power.
Yes.
But like neglecting the fact that like it was that world power that oppressed us.
Yes.
And still oppressing us. Like so I feel like we like as black people we have to address that. Like are you like which side are you going to take and which side are you going to identify with?
Exactly. And ultimately, a lot of people think they've been indoctrinated into a force of cowardice because cowardice makes sense. But ultimately you're identified with a force of cowardice because you've been bred and taught to be identified with that force of cowardice, not because it's the most sensible approach. The most sensible approach is things getting better. The most sensible approach is not hyper identifying with a system that makes sure things stay worse.